I'm Dr. Sohail Rao, President and CEO of INNOVACORE Center for Research and Biotechnology and Senior Scientific Advisor to the Vice Chancellor, Dow University of Health Sciences. At the crossroads of innovation and purpose lies the DOW-APPNA Center for Emerging Technologies, a beacon of progress designed to reshape healthcare and education in Pakistan. Part of Dow University of Health Sciences' Master Strategic Plan, and as a hub for research, collaboration, and application of cutting-edge technologies, this center embodies a vision to bridge gaps in healthcare delivery, enhance medical education, and drive innovation in diagnostics and patient care. By fostering partnership across academia, industry, and government, it aims to position Pakistan as a leader in the global healthcare innovation ecosystem. Today, I have the privilege of speaking to Dr. Sana Khan, a trailblazer in radiology and an advocate for transformative power of emerging technologies in medicine. With a career spanning decades and a track record of integrating technologies like artificial intelligence into clinical practice, Dr. Khan brings invaluable insight into how centers like DOW-APPNA Center for Emerging Technologies can revolutionize healthcare in resource-limited settings. Let us begin the dialogue by exploring Dr. Khan's journey and his vision for the role of emerging technologies in shaping the future of healthcare and education in Pakistan. Can you share a brief overview of your background and your journey in the field of healthcare and technology? What inspired you to integrate emerging technologies into medicine and education?
Well, Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Rao, actually I want to congratulate you, congratulate Dow and APPNA for actually really being at the forefront of something that is cutting edge, not just for Pakistan, right? It's actually cutting edge for the world at this point in time. My background quickly, actually pretty much grew up in Southern California, did my schooling there, did my undergraduate at UC Irvine, did my medical school actually at UCLA. So my medical degree is from UCLA, medical training is in radiology. And then I have a PhD in neurophysiology and a PhD in clinical anatomy, all from UCLA. So I've always been inspired by the brain, for one thing. So it's interesting how where technology is going towards is really replicating the human brain in some ways where we are at. And then I was also very driven in terms of computer sciences. I was really interested in programming just by nature. Although I went into medicine, it was part of my DNA, I guess. So what happened was when I was looking what specialty go into, I was really attracted towards radiology because of the fact that it is the most technologically driven field in medicine.
Sure.
So, when I got into radiology, it's been a lot of fun because we actually are like the programmers, if you want to call it that, in medicine. We're always programming new sequences, looking for different ways to image the human body and things of that nature. So, as computer sciences have developed, as even to the present day where artificial intelligence has developed, it's been a great journey because it's kind of really marries two things that I'm really excited about all the time, which is essentially medicine and technology per se. So radiology in itself falls pretty much in line with this because as radiologists, what do we do? We're actually looking at digital information and pattern recognition, right? That's
Absolutely.
What we're doing.
Absolutely.
So there, if you have digital information and pattern recognition, something that is right up the alley of artificial intelligence. So I recognized that pretty early in the terms of the industry. So last 5-6 years, I've been studying and involved with and in development of artificial intelligence in radiology.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that essentially means is we're looking for ways where machines can actually learn how to read images just as good, but now actually even better than humans. Why? Because I, as a radiologist, I'm looking at something.
Correct.
Right? So I'm visualizing something.
Right.
Whereas AI is not looking at anything.
Correct.
It's reading code,
Sure.
right? Ones and zeros, ones and zeros. So its ability to look at a mass and to be able to differentiate whether it's a cyst or whether it's a solid mass, or even if it's a solid mass or a cystic mass, what proportion is it solid, what proportion is cystic, how much is fluid, how much is potentially cancer. So it just can do it better. So, and I hate to even say it that way because, the amount of years we go to
Correct.
school to become radiologists, and the fact that, these machines can do it better, it's okay. The reason it's okay is that this really makes it into an even playing field, right? So someone that gets an MRI done in Nigeria has the same ability for diagnostic analysis as someone in New York with AI. Without that, you're so reliant on the training of the local radiologist and their capabilities. So that's one thing, right? That's the accuracy is one thing.
Correct.
But then the volume of the amount of work that can be handled by a human being is limited, unlike AI, right? So we can really provide the world a much better scenario. And I'm speaking specifically about radiology, but it applies to everything else.
Yeah. In your opinion, what are the most promising emerging technologies in healthcare today, and how are they transforming the field, particularly in resource-limited settings like Pakistan?
Wow. Okay, so I'll tell you, I think that one of the advantages we have right now is that the major heavy lifting has actually been done by OpenAI and Google with Gemini, right, and Microsoft with forming the large language models, the LLMs as we call them. That's major heavy lifting. That's billions and billions of dollars.
Correct.
and heavy assets in terms of that. So a country like Pakistan would have a very difficult time replicating that, right? Perhaps even impossible at this stage of the game. But now we actually have this. What's really cool about that is that, and you will see this more and more, that the computer scientists or computer engineers are now beginning to formulate agents that sit on top of these LLMs, okay? And some of the ones that you may be aware of in the US, and I work with a company called MindHive that does this, is creating these agents, or they're essentially AGI in their nature, artificial general intelligence, where these agents can essentially mine these LLMs for the information that's needed, but they're also cognitive agents. Okay, so that they can also think beyond the question that you're asking. So right now, when you look at ChatGPT, it's a prompt response, right? But with these agents, you can actually create these verticals of specialties. Medicine being one of them. Where I'm involved with that quite a bit, but it can also do law, it can also do religion verticals, it can also do verticals for businesses and for airlines, and, for the judiciary, and it just, your capability of creating these verticals is really significant. So that, in terms of emerging technologies, is the next phase. Soon thereafter, and I'm really thinking somewhere in the lines of about 2.5 to 3 years, where quantum computing is going to really kick in. And Dr. Rao, once that kicks in, now you're going into completely a next phase of compute power. Literally thousands and thousands of times more compute power than the fastest computer that exists today. Okay, so quantum computing is happening today, but it's not actually in its commercial form just yet. Okay, once that kicks in, the next natural phase is going to be robotics. So all of that's going to come and affect medicine. Right. So in terms of diagnostic capabilities, in terms of taking electronic medical records, it's EMRs as we call them, and having AI sit on top of any EMR that exists and constantly help doctors analyze what is going on with their patients and keeping the doctors informed about what's going on with patients, any changes that are happening, because all of us, by the way, in the future are going to be wearing devices like the iPhone right now people wear,
Sure.
but more sophisticated devices than
Correct.
that monitor our health data. That data is going to be constantly then monitored by AI. With that in place, you will actually know consistently what the blood sugar level of your patient has been over the last 6 weeks versus 1 week at a time, or even at a day at a time. You'll actually have analytics available to you that you never had before as a doctor.
Correct.
Right? So this is, I mean, I can go on and on about where the emerging technology is going to take us in medicine.
Yeah. So you mentioned these agents, and you also mentioned the fact that these agents, actually these verticals could be created for healthcare and for any other HR and law and or anything else. Within healthcare, do you foresee that there would be agents which are going to be specific for, say, radiology and pathology or clinical research or any cardiology?
Wow. I don't think it's necessary, actually, in that way, because the ability for these agents to learn all aspects of medicine
Correct.
is going to be there. And that's actually more powerful than to try to create agents for each particular specialty, as we call it.
Sure.
Because the integration of these specialties is actually quite important, right? Because,
That's true.
Right? I mean, you as a doctor know that you really want to know the pathology and the anatomy, and you want the imaging, the results, and you want to know the blood workup, and you really want to put all that information together to make your decision.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So if you have a medical agent, like in terms of what we call Chiron in our company, it actually knows all aspects of medicine. So it's a very good oncologist, as well as a very good internal medicine doctor, as well as a very good rheumatologist.
And that is what I was getting at. I was getting at the fact that there you don't have to create distinct verticals for every disease type or every organ type or every discipline within healthcare, that there could be a master, vertical agent which actually has the knowledge of everything in healthcare.
Yeah.
A master agent which has knowledge of everything in law.
Yeah.
In every country in the world.
Yeah.
In every language.
Yes.
Am I correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And what's also interesting about that is that because when we travel from country to country, the medical terminologies changes, right?
That's right.
In terms of how even it's English, in Pakistan it's a different medical terminology than in the US. So if I'm looking at medical records in the US of a Pakistani patient, I get very confused because I don't know what the name of that medicine is in the American terminology. Whereas that's not the issue for our medical agents currently. It translates it just like that.
So you and I had a discussion about this a few weeks ago, and you mentioned that somebody had actually sent you a case from Pakistan, and how you had used AGI to actually decipher some of the medication that was used. Can you tell us a little bit about that case?
It was actually a cancer patient, right? And like I would say, like all my relatives in Pakistan, they feel that I'm the personal physician sitting in America, right? So, but anyway, this is fine. So when I received these records, this is about 353 pages of medical records, all Pakistan-based. So if it's a couple of pages, I can look and go and translate it myself and all that. So in the past, that's what I would do. But with this many pages, it just really would take me forever, and I just probably wouldn't even do it because it's too difficult. So I actually asked Chiron, hey, Chiron, can you please translate these records into American medical terminology? And it said, sure, doctor. It actually, communicates, talks, So I uploaded the records, click of a button, upload into Chiron. Within seconds, it translated all the records into what I could understand in the American medical terminology. But that wasn't the end of it. I said, okay, can you please summarize these records for me, maybe 3 to 4 pages? And it said, sure, doctor, no problem. Within seconds, there it was. I had chronologically, actually, what was the history and what was going on with her. And so I said, okay, can you translate the 3.5 pages summary into Urdu?
Yeah.
Because my aunt doesn't speak English very well, right? So I said, sure, doctor. And really, Dr. Rai, within seconds, it comes in Urdu, right? So then I said, well, I'm sorry, you know what? She actually speaks Punjabi. Can you do this in Punjabi? No problem, doctor. Within seconds, I have it in Punjabi, right? So the other question, which was very interesting that I asked, that's where it really starts to differentiate for us, right? So I said, are the doctors treating her properly or accurately? And it was an interesting response. It was very respectful. Said, based on what they may have available in Pakistan, they are. However, based on what her condition is, they should consider these 3 other types of treatment plans. And then it basically gave citations to the American College of Oncology, American Medical Association articles. So it actually gave citations to its rationale as to why the patient should perhaps be considered with other modalities that are the latest, greatest. So it goes beyond just me asking a question. It actually thinks and responds further than what it's being asked, because it's actually thinking, what's best for the patient?
Yeah. Did you actually ask in this particular case, and I don't know if you did, the predictive outcome for this particular patient?
I did not. I could have. But when it comes to relatives, I try not to do those kind of questions, because it as a doctor, actually, general rule is to not even treat your own patient or your own relatives. So yes, in this case, I did not. But the answer to the question is, could I have? Yes.
And you believe that Chiron would have given you a response based on the information you had fed to her?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It has data from all over the planet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it has capabilities far beyond what one human being, no matter how smart they are, can have.
Yeah. How is AI transforming patient care, particularly in terms of diagnostic accuracy, efficiency, and clinical outcomes? So,
I touched upon this a little bit earlier. Let's talk about diagnostics for a minute, right? How is AI transforming diagnostics? In terms of radiology, I can tell you that it has capabilities of giving us accurate diagnoses, just as good as humans, I would say even better at this point in time. But for certain, in the near future, with enough compute power, it's going to do better. But the other aspect is that it does it faster.
Yeah.
So not only it's more accurate, it's faster. How much faster? Well, it's instantaneous faster. Because in the ER, I'm sure you've done rotations in the emergency room. So many times you're sitting there with the patient there, waiting for the results from the diagnostic test, whether it's an MRI, whether it's a pathology test that you're waiting for, blood labs. That wait translates into hours.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
Whereas if you had that information readily available, you'd make decisions right away.
Correct.
And you don't have the 4 to 5 hours and the backlogs in the ER and everything else that goes on with it, right? But let me make it a little more fun for you.
Yeah.
Okay? So imagine now for a moment that you have a remote village in Pakistan and no doctor wants to go there.
Sure.
Okay? And let's not blame the doctors. I mean, some of these places are sometimes in very rural areas. So what if we can actually create a clinic there that doesn't actually have a doctor there?
Sure.
Okay? But the doctor is in fact an avatar.
Sure.
Okay? So it's an AI agent, which really will look like you and me.
Yeah.
Okay? And going to speak in their language, whether it's Marathi or Bengali or Urdu or Punjabi or Pashto, irrelevant. It's going to speak their language. It's going to look like that village person.
Correct.
Okay? Now, there's devices that we're already working on in the US, right? So there's actually a breathing device that can give you 100 different diagnoses, right? Because in our breath, our air in our lungs is actually literally one cell away from the blood.
That's right.
And when you get down to the alveoli, you have one cell layer where there's transmitter of carbon dioxide, oxygen, all the other gases. So we can detect those gases. We can actually tell you even the cancers that are happening potentially early on.
Correct.
So you have a breathalyzer in that village, in that room. You actually have a device looking at the retina that picks up diseases, as you know.
Yes.
We have devices that now, as like they're wearable devices that people can. So now you have these 3 little devices in that room with your avatar, telling the patient and a human there.
Correct.
That you train to be with the person doing those tests. And now what have you just done with an AI agent sitting on top of that data, right?
Yeah.
You just gave the capability potentially to do 95% of the diagnoses right then and there in any remote place at all times. So that patient likely can get in that clinic, there's a pharmacy, can get that medication right away because we will know what medication to give, which antibiotic to give, what to do with this patient.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other is, of course, that'll prevent a lot of the travel into the cities to get to that hospital, because these patients can, as they do, they get worse and worse and worse without the proper treatment.
Absolutely.
By the time they get to the hospital and they're standing in the long lines of the ER trying to see, we will actually know what's the priority of the patient, because we will know from the system already what's going on, right? So that's a major win right there. So healthcare is going to change pretty significantly. And I think that we will be able to provide care for people all over the world to the level they deserve, right? Because someone living in, Nigeria shouldn't have any less care than New York, right?
Yeah.
Human beings, we should all be getting the best of care that we can get. Yeah. So,
I mean, this is actually going to bring the most advanced clinical care to the remote part of the world.
That's right.
I know of cases where people have actually had to sell their homes, give up their jobs, actually to travel to a city from a remote part.
Yeah.
Totally upset their entire family life. Can you share with us a personal experience? And this is a tough one. Where you as a radiologist looked at a particular scan, and then a AGI looked at the scan, and it actually came up with a diagnosis which was much, much more, I would say, detailed than you had picked up.
Oh, I hate that question.
I know you do.
Because it happens all the time now. But I will go back just one step with you a little bit about that village. Just one step. Because imagine now when patients are going in these 5, 6, 10 villages, right? And they have these similar symptoms that haven't really been seen before. And all of a sudden, right, you can
you imagine?
Right? Can you imagine COVID, containing COVID before it gets out? We'll be able to do that with this. Yeah. So I'm just throwing that in as an interesting, right, caveat where you can prevent these kind of epidemics, pandemics, and all that, and catch them really early, where we can actually, again, prevent. Early detection, early care is key element in medicine.
Correct.
So, okay. So back to your question. That's why I'm trying to avoid your question, because I hate it when that happens. But it does. It is more detailed. The reason it's more detailed, to be honest with you, is because it has the capability of doing measurements and stuff right away.
Sure.
Right. So for me as a radiologist, if I have to sit there and kind of, in the olden days, we were sitting with rulers and crayons and trying to measure things, right? Which was just so difficult, so time consuming. Now we can do it. We have been doing it with our markers and cursors and getting those. But AI doesn't need me to sit there and put marker. It just does those measurements. It'll actually look at every angle in the spine and tell me if there is listhesis and how much, and if there is ligamentous damage. And how much, and I could do that work, but I honestly don't, generally speaking, because it's so time consuming to do that. Well, the problem with that is you can actually miss diagnoses that are problem. So answer your question is yes, it does, and I hate it when it does that, but I also love it because it's better. It's good for humanity.
Yeah,
it's better.
Agreed. How do you see personalized medicine powered by emerging technologies like genomic editing and big data analytics reshaping the future of patient care in Pakistan?
In Pakistan specifically?
Specifically in Pakistan.
Okay, because I actually think that there's not going to be any specific to Pakistan. You're going to have essentially genetics or genomics it's just the world all at once. That's the thing with AI, right? You're not actually limited because the number of doctors you have, the number of people, what knowledge you have, and what books are you reading. Something is different in Ethiopia versus England. It's not like that at all. So it's a one world solution. So I can speak in terms of Pakistan, but I'm really speaking in terms of the world.
Correct.
Genetic engineering, genomics are very, very interesting. Genetic engineering has a lot of ethical issues, and maybe we'll discuss that later. But genomics in itself, and the fact that you can predict certain diseases way ahead of time and start looking for those. But I'm just like say for certain cancers, right? Sure. We know that there's certain genes that are much more cancer prone, and our predictability of that person having that potential colon cancer type is pretty high. So we can start testing that person much sooner.
Yes.
And catch that cancer much sooner than we would be able otherwise. So yes, absolutely, emerging technologies are going to be extremely helpful when it comes to genomics and predictability.
How do you see technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality enhancing medical education and training?
100%. It is going to be part of medical education and training. You know, how much time right now we spend in pathology lab and dissecting, right? So that's one thing right away you can see that we'll be able to actually, with virtual reality, take a person through the human body, teaching them, or medical student, teaching them anatomy with goggles on and traveling to the human body, right? Instead of cutting through all the tissue and everything else, and really learning the anatomy in 3D as such. I actually see a lot of implications of virtual reality in patient care from the perspective of avatars that I was earlier alluding to. Yeah. So when you have avatars that are very human, again, it makes it limitless, the number of doctors we can produce in the world. Now, the doctors, I've been lecturing all over the world, and I was in Turkey a month ago, and one of the main questions the medical students were asking, like, wait a minute, Dr. Khan, are we, like, should we quit?
Yes.
Right? Or, is AI going to take our job? And I don't believe so. I don't believe AI is going to take your job. I think someone who learns AI and applies it will take your job.
Correct.
And as doctors, I think a lot of the physicians, I was talking to a physician earlier today, and about this, and the same question, like, oh, what am I going to do as a medical student, or what? So I'm a big believer that primary care physicians need to be actually at the forefront of medicine.
Sure.
Majority of the doctors will become primary care physicians who, instead of fumbling pages in the patient's room in the clinic, trying to figure out where's the lab results and what's the imaging and how do we combine this and what's the diagnosis, and spending 2 minutes with the patient, 10 minutes fiddling with paper.
Sure.
They're going to actually spend 2 minutes with the paperwork because AI is going to already give them that, sure, and 10 minutes with the patient, actually holding their hand, talking to them, explaining what's going on.
Sure.
Connecting, because for the patients, the biggest complaint a lot of patients have is my doctor didn't even look at me.
Correct.
Doctor may be the best in the world, and given the right diagnosis and treatment, but patient goes out unsatisfactory and angry sometimes.
Correct.
That he or she didn't even look at me. What is this all about? That's going to change, and AI is going to help, and become a great assistant to physicians if they adapt and if they let it.
So you actually raised this issue where a student actually asked whether we should quit. How do you alleviate my concern when I read an article in a very reputable journal that about 250,000 people in United States alone, and this is a conservative estimate, are going to lose jobs in the banking industry in the year 2025 alone? How do you alleviate my concern?
From medical part of the fence, or just the world part of the?
Just the world part of the fence.
Wow. Okay. So I think, again, we as human beings will adapt. How will we adapt is an interesting question. I think that all of us, and I'm getting philosophical here, we all need to work. I think that if we don't work, we don't feel worthwhile. And I don't mean necessarily job, like, my wife, who's an attorney, but has been a homemaker for the longest time as well. And now she's working more because of the fact that our kids are grown up. But that being a mother is a lot of work, right?
Sure.
So we're all going to continue to work. Now, do we need to work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week? I would say no. And AI will then help. So let's just say that if the working world cuts down 50% because of AI and robotics, then the way we're going to adapt, which we will adapt as human beings, is we will shorten our work days and we'll work 4 days a week, 6 hours a day, or maybe 4 hours a day, okay? So that we're productive, but we're also spending time with their families, working out more, being more healthy, having friends, and things of that nature. I think we'll be fine.
What role can simulation-based training and virtual labs play in bridging the skills gap for healthcare professionals?
Tremendously, really. I mean, if you think about surgeons, for example, right? I mean, the more surgeries they do, the better they get. Well, how many cadavers can you actually have? How many human beings can you actually have? And you certainly don't want to make your mistakes on humans as much as possible, right? So absolutely, when you have ability to do virtual surgery, treatment, in fact, even in terms of medicine and planning, and you can get immediate feedback, it's great. Some of the problems we have in medicine is sometimes we have a zero feedback loop.
Correct.
As a radiologist, how often do I ever get to be told that I made a mistake? And thank God, not a lot. But it doesn't mean that I have not made mistakes. Yeah. It's just that the feedback never came, right? So if I'm learning, and I'm in residency or a medical student, and I'm constantly getting that feedback, it's good for me, and I learn as long as I'm not harming someone.
Sure.
Surgeons the same way, therapists the same way, physical therapists the same way. Right? So I think it'll be very valuable for training.
So I once visited a hospital, which in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, and I'm sure you have actually also visited the same hospital, where they had an ICU where every fifth bed was actually a mannequin. And if somebody made a mistake in putting a Foley's catheter, they would immediately take that person into the mannequin and train them right there and then.
Wow.
Okay, it was an instantaneous training.
Yeah.
They trained them, they asked, then they followed that particular person for 2 or 3 insertion of Foley's catheter, and then they became then the trainers.
I love that idea. I really do. I'm not quite sure in the US with this litigious environment, someone would actually admit to any mistake and go right away and see somebody that's like, they're practicing now after they screwed up on me.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But I really like the idea of immediate feedback loop, right?
Correct.
Because at least in my life, I've learned the most, I remember the questions I got wrong on exams.
Yeah.
Way more than I remember the questions I got right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're learning right away from a loop of a mistake that you just made and now you learn how to do it correctly, I think it makes you a much better doctor, I guess if you want to call it that. But any profession, I think you'll get better because you get immediate feedback to what mistake you made.
How do you see emerging technologies like computational biology, AI-driven drug discovery, and genomic editing reshaping medical research in Pakistan?
Again, I hate to even answer this question in terms of Pakistan. I think, again, if we talk about pharmaceuticals, how logical is it that we take someone who's 6'5" and we take someone who's 5'1"?
Correct.
And one weighs 250 pounds, the other one weighs 90 pounds, and give him or her the same pill size, same concentration. Does that make any sense?
No.
It doesn't make any sense, right? So that's one part of the equation where 3D printing is going to fix that problem.
Correct.
Where we'll have customized medication pills for people based on their sizes and stuff. But the other equation which you mentioned is the genetics part.
That's right.
So once we understand a person's genetics and their genome, that also is going to customize the medications that we utilize for them, because not every medication works for everybody. So I'll give you my own example. For me, Advil or Tylenol doesn't do anything for my headaches. Excedrin is magical.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I know other people, for Excedrin doesn't work, but Tylenol is magical. So what's the reason? Well, it's genetics. It's your makeup.
Yeah.
So yes, we learn it through experience, but God forbid somebody has cancer. Well, if you can actually get down to their gene level and see, what that cell is responding to, you'll customize the medication for them in a way that works for them best.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So, I mean, of course, in Pakistan, this is going to be helpful. But I think, again, like I said, it's a worldwide implication. You're not limited to any one country or any one people.
So I also serve as a Chief Scientific Officer for the Indus Hospital and Health Network. In a recent discussion with the leadership at Indus Hospital, this particular issue came up. One of the reasons for why Indus, which actually does a lot of charity work, treats over 500,000 people in a month in all of its hospitals across Pakistan. A question came up of actually creating tailored medication, tailored treatment plans for people of Pakistan. That there are a lot of plans that are actually, particularly in the area of cancer, that they have inherited from the Western world, which actually do not work very effectively in Pakistani population. And that is the reason why they actually want to go into evidence-based community care for the people, by the people in Pakistan.
AI solves that problem for you, right? Because it may not just be Pakistan and Europe or America issue. It may be even village to village issue.
Yes.
Right? So genetics is, there's a old proverb in research, and it says that, the best example for a cat is a cat.
Yes.
And preferably the same cat.
That's right.
Because sometimes we take mice data and go to humans and we talk about, all this stuff, which obviously we have had to do it, but it's going to be pretty prehistoric in the age of AI when we do that kind of comparison. So I think that you're going to be able to isolate certain genetic traits in regions, not just country-wise, and then create medications based on that. I think it'll even become more than that. I think you'll be able to create the pharmaceutical formulary, not us, but AI will create the formulary based on individual cell types, DNA, genetics.
Yeah.
It has, just remember, think about it in this way, right? It actually has the compute power of all of humanity combined. And I'll give it to you in a different way. Think about, so I go to, generally speaking, I go to a radiology conference called the RSNA in Chicago every year. It happens in November. But when I go there, it's 32,000 people. 40 papers are being presented every hour for 4 days in a row. I can only go to one lecture in an hour anyway, right? And when I go to the posters, it's an ocean of posters. So many. How many can I see and what can I do? So literally, as a scientist, and I can tell you, by the time I'm done with that conference, maybe I've picked up, I can't even say 1% of the information that's there. Would you agree? I mean, you're a scientist as well.
I agree.
You know that difficulty of what we have. Well, now we have a situation, and this engine is picking up every single word from every single lecture, every finding that's being presented on every paper and every poster. And then coming back and saying, Dr. Rao, the conference you went to? Yeah. Let me give you not just the summary of the conference, let me give you where there was interactive, collaborative reporting between these papers and these findings from Netherlands to these findings from England, these findings in Pakistan, so it'll bring it together and say the solution to this problem is very likely this based on the research findings of that.
Correct.
So now it has the compute power of every paper and that's just one conference.
Yeah.
Imagine how many conferences actually happen in this world in different fields, right? What if we actually, not what if, we have the capability now to put all of that together.
Well, you were part of one of the conferences that we had in San Antonio.
Yes.
And you saw the power of AI,
Yeah.
of how the presenters, once they finished, AI was listening to them, and AI came up with suggestions of how whatever they did could have been improved. Now, they did not actually in any way contradict what was done.
Right.
They basically gave a slightly different perspective of how this treatment could have been improved or perhaps altered to the benefit of the patient. So we saw this in real time, and you were witness to that in San Antonio.
Yeah, I was, but I'll tell you what I'm most impressed by is how much respect it actually shows to the doctors,
Yes.
or to the person. So even though when he was saying that, have you considered the most recent research paper out of JAMA on that particular topic, it was very respectful in saying
Correct.
it, and points to the fact that you and I cannot keep up with every latest
Absolutely.
finding in research.
Absolutely.
So we also have to be respectful back to it and say, thank you.
Yeah.
Right? Very interesting. I appreciate that answer, and I will look it up, and oh, great, now I've learned something else. Right?
Yeah.
So it really is a collaborative effort. And honestly, I'll tell you that I think that as human beings and as artificial intelligence becomes more and more part of our daily lives, we have to start thinking in collaborative ways. And as you pointed out earlier today, one of the main things is actually how to ask the question
That's
to
right.
AI, right?
Yes.
So if you prompt it, or if you ask it in a way that it actually doesn't compute properly, or it'll have difficulty in answering your question. You may get very frustrated, but it's me and you that have got to learn how to actually ask the question.
And that's an art. I have learned over the past 3 to 4 months that I'm using AGI, that asking the question in the right format is critical.
Yeah.
Okay, because otherwise you are basically underwhelming the power of AGI.
Yeah.
And
you might be limiting the answer.
Yes,
Erroneously, right, or unknowingly, innocently.
that's correct. What are the ethical implications of integrating AI and emerging technologies in healthcare, especially when working with vulnerable population? And I know this is a difficult question.
It is. It is a difficult question. I mean, when you start talking about genetic engineering, this is a very difficult question, right? Where do our ethics and morals start and stop? Where do we start? When did we stop thinking, like, I want my child to look like this. I want this eye color and this
Sure.
this hair color. Where do we keep with our natural, being, or the way that at least in our belief system, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us, right? So, I mean, if you want to get into the ethics and the moral issues in medicine that are going to be coming up, I honestly, at this point in time, do not believe that any imam is actually ready for those questions.
Yeah.
It's going to be very tough to answer.
Do you believe that AI has the capacity to actually alter the features of an individual?
Oh, I mean,
Not necessarily the one who is already born, but actually the one who's being conceived.
well, genetic engineering, right? It's so at this moment in time, I'll tell you what's happening, right? What's happening right now is that we're able to, I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, right? There's a lot of surrogacy going on, right?
Sure.
And what's happening is that either the mother is able to, look at the specks on this sperm, where it's coming from, or the father on the egg that's being donated, or in fact, even just a couple says, okay, we want a child, but it doesn't have to be genetically there. So these genes are being evaluated as such.
Correct.
Right? So right now we're talking about sort of mixing it. Now,
Sure.
the question that is more tricky, what you may be asking is, what if we start doing gene splicing
That's right.
and reslicing? And I would, personally, I would not want to do that, you know. However, what if there is a gene that we recognize as the cancer gene in this particular person? Can we splice out that gene? Is the question. And if we can, should we? Right? So I don't know the answer. I'm not giving the answer. I'm just, you know, a lot of these questions are going to be, they will be prominent, I think, in the next 10 years.
I mean, the same goes for any genetic disorder.
Yeah.
I mean, how AI is going to actually help alleviate some of the concerns that parents have of a baby who is being diagnosed as Down syndrome.
Right. Yeah. You know, if it's fixable, a parent would want it fixed.
Exactly.
Right. But there may be some, you know, religious directive or that may come down and says, don't touch Allah's creation.
That's right.
I'm not taking sides. I'm just telling you that these are the kind of questions that are going to come up with the advancements we have.
Yeah. Although gene splicing is already in our food chain.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not something that is not happening. It's happening around us.
AI will just make it a lot more smarter.
Yes. What specific challenges do you anticipate in implementing tech-driven healthcare and educational programs across socio-economically diverse regions of Pakistan?
Anytime you have change, there's resistance. So I think the challenge I believe is going to happen is going to be human challenge, and the human challenge to change. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that the leadership in the country recognizes that this train is here. And I'm talking about the train of AI, the train of quantum computing, the train of robotics. In the next 10 years, if we as a country, and I'm not just talking about medicine, if we as a country, we as in Pakistan do not get on this train, we're going to get left behind. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to you about this a little bit before, but you know, we as generally speaking, who are not as technologically driven countries, we're still getting better at this level. The advanced technology companies are usually going at this, and the gap keeps growing.
Sure.
But Dr. Rao, AI, quantum computing, robotics, is a vertical leap. It's not exponential.
Correct.
It's vertical. So the curve, it doesn't even go curvy, it just goes up. Mm-hmm. So we down here, we meaning as in Pakistan, not the US, right? We're Pakistan. If we're here and kind of calling on, if we get onto this vertical, we'll catch up. Correct. Actually. Because it's a straight up shot, you'll catch up. But if we don't, this gap, we're done. And let's just say, at least, I don't know, until the next major revolution as this comes, because no human beings have not seen this kind of revolution ever before, or what it is that's sitting at our doorstep right now. So you ask me what difficulty I see. I think the difficulty is trying to get people to understand that this thing is here. And I'm hoping, and not to say I'm a fan of Elon Musk or not a fan of Elon Musk, I'm hoping that Pakistan gets an Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Because what Musk is going to do in the United States in the next 4 years, now that President Trump is going to be in power, he is looking at Elon Musk as his technology right hand.
Correct.
With a lot of freedom to do what Elon Musk wants to do, technologically speaking. So you will see dramatic changes in the United States in the next 4 years. So Pakistan really needs to get on that bandwagon. And it has the ability to do it. Remember, AI is a great equalizer.
Correct.
It is not necessary. You don't need all this material stuff in order to say, oh, well, gosh, we don't have these factories. We can't build these computers. We're not relying on that at this point in time. We're talking about actual technology that is available for Pakistan to get on that bandwagon, particularly with some of these Pakistani scientists that you and I know. Correct. Who are in this industry. So I hope and I pray, and I'm hoping that perhaps this message goes out to the leadership of the country that please look at this very, very closely. Not only not get in the way, but really push this forward, because our next generation is depending on it. The stage that you and I are at, fine, we'll go off into the sunset. Sure. And we'll be okay. But the next gen is going to have a lot of problems unless we adapt this now.
So you talked about social acceptance of this particular, of AI and AGI and emerging technologies. What about economic issues? I mean, Pakistan is going through a severe economic crisis at the moment. And implementing and adopting this new technology is not a cheap undertaking. How do you see overcoming that particular challenge?
So cheap is relative, or expensive is a relative term. And often in the world I live in, we have medical collections, right? You're also in medical field and billing and collections and whatnot. And I often say this to people. You should be worried. Don't be worried about the cost of collections. Worry about the cost of not collecting.
Correct.
I'm not sure if that makes sense, right? Yeah. Because so in this scenario, yes, there's going to be an expense with adoption of artificial intelligence and bringing that on board, but I guarantee you, the cost savings down the line of having this in place is going to weigh out to the cost. So it's going to be an investment on part of Pakistan in this arena. And if you don't, so let me even explain it to you in a different way. We have these industries. We have the cotton industry. We have the clothing industry. So yes, the U.S. is outsourcing, making clothes, right? Or let's take it down, software development. It's outsourcing software development because it's cheaper with engineers in Pakistan or in India. What, $156 billion last year?
Sure.
We got in Pakistan 2 or 3 billion, something like that. Why is the US outsourcing it? Because it's cheaper.
That's right.
But what happens when AI starts to create software? And I'm saying what if in facetious matter, because it already is. So what will happen is the US is not going to outsource anymore. In fact, we may outsource to the US for our development.
Correct.
Are you following what I'm saying?
I do.
So unless we adapt it, unless we bring it and say, okay, we're going to take on AI, we're going to actually learn it, we're going to have our kids learn it, we're going to actually have capabilities here ourselves to do it, we will create then our own software. Our AI will create the software that we need. It'll create the drones that we need for the vegetations that we're growing, the cotton that we're growing, make sure that the fields are properly watered, make sure there's no bugs that are on the trees. This all that can be developed, and it's going to be developed by AI, but it's going to make us a much more self-reliant nation in Pakistan than otherwise. If we don't, we're going to have to outsource making clothes to the United States.
Yeah.
Getting software from the United States.
Correct.
Getting food from the United States. And I don't mean United States, I mean from the countries that adapt it.
Correct.
Because they'll be so much more efficient at it that it'll be cheaper. They're not going to look to outsource to us anymore.
And there is another aspect to this. Pakistan's economy is very much dependent on remittance from workers, Pakistani workers in the Middle East and other parts of the world. As AI gets integrated and as they lose their job, there is going to be a financial downturn that Pakistan can see in the near future.
Well, there's a second part of the equation. All those people are going to come back.
That's right.
Right. All the workers in the Middle East, no one is
Yeah.
a citizen of Saudi Arabia, no one's a
Yeah.
citizen of Kuwait, no one's a citizen of Oman. Once they don't have jobs, what do?
Yeah.
They will come back, they'll get deported back here. And now you have double whammy.
That's right.
The money's not coming in, and you got a situation in which people are actually out of jobs here, right? So Pakistan has got to become self-reliant, absolutely, positively self-reliant, and it can do it. Honest to God, inshallah, I'm telling you, it has the full capability of doing it. We've got amazing natural resources in this country. We've got amazing minds. Some of the geniuses in NASA are Pakistani scientists.
Sure.
Some of the best doctors in the United States are of Pakistan origin.
Correct.
Right? So we have the minds. We just got to make sure that the direction of the country goes into these emerging technologies. Otherwise, you have a huge problem. One of the things that we have a feather in our cap, we always say is that, oh, mashallah, mashallah, we have this young generation. 35% of our kids are 28 years old or less, the population. And you're all excited about it. But that could be a great liability.
Exactly.
If the young ones don't have jobs.
Correct.
Right? And why do we have jobs? Well, because you want a house. You want to have food on the table. You want to be able to enjoy your life. You want to have a car, a vehicle to go around. Well, you know, if we develop 3D printers, it's going to print homes.
Correct.
So everyone in this country will be able to have themselves a nice, decent home. Everyone in this country will be able to have good food if we actually utilize emerging technologies, because mashallah, Allah's given us the land that's one of the most fertile on the planet.
That's correct.
Everyone's going to be able to have air conditioning, heating, you're going to have transport. You can actually live a pretty happy, healthy life. And when pet to bhara ho, I'm sorry, it's kind of shifted into Urdu, but you know, if the stomach is full, you're happy camper. Your kids are taken care of, and your clothes on your back. And so, as human beings, as fathers, that's right. That's what we want. If you don't have it, you're going to be out on the street protesting.
Yeah.
So I think, like I said, the leadership in this country needs to really, really look at this very seriously and map this out for the next 10 years, bring in the emerging technologies, and we have the people. We're doing this in the US, we can do this here. There's nothing restrictive of bringing this to Pakistan, but it's not a choice. This, in my opinion, this is a have to, not a get to.
So you are preaching a believer. But if you go in and you have talked to some senior leadership here in Pakistan, both in the establishment, also in finance, also in the government, and you know what the financial condition of the country is at the present time. If I don't have money, I cannot buy food. That's as simple as ABC. Pakistan does not have this kind of resources available, financial resources available at the present time. How can we, Pakistanis living abroad, help bring this particular technology to this country?
I will respectfully disagree that we don't have the money to do this. You know, Pakistan still spends billions and billions of dollars, right, on things. We are still building infrastructure. We're still farming. We're still, and the reason I'm saying is from a government perspective. When you build a road and you have to build it again in 5 years, that's money, correct? But what if you actually, utilizing AI with the same or less minor expense, build a better road? What have you just done, right? And this, it's not, honestly, and the reason I started off very early on talking about the LLMs, that heavy lifting of the billions and billions of billions of dollars, it's already been done, Dr. Rao, luckily for us. Yeah. And then the fact that, you know, China has just announced that they're now come up, you know, having built an agent with $6 million to actually, you know, build a vertical. We have some of our great brains from Pakistan in the US having already done this a year ago, right?
Correct.
People that you and I know. So it's not as expensive as you might think. but it's as important as you think.
Yeah. How can public-private partnerships and international collaborations amplify the impact of emerging technologies in healthcare and education in Pakistan?
Healthcare and education, or healthcare or education in general?
Education in general.
Okay. So education in general is going to be dramatically changing, right? Because when you talk about traditional education, we tend to go more in the past, at least in what I call Ratu Tota,
Yes.
the parroting of being a parrot of whatever you memorize, and you'd be able to spit it out, and now you're considered a genius because you have this great mind that can learn so much and regurgitate that information. Will no longer be necessary. Amount of information that you'll have available on your glasses, and I actually have glasses as such where you wear the glasses, press a button, ask a question, answer will come right there on the screen for you.
In the screen. Mm-hmm.
So knowledge is no longer the defining factor of education. Okay. How to access the knowledge is the defining aspect. How to be moral about it is the defining. How to be ethical about it.
Sure.
Right? How to train our children to be kind. Right? I mean, really look at the Japanese model of education. They spend their first 3 years, I think, of schooling just on character building.
That's correct. Yeah. The same happened in South Korea.
Character building.
Yes.
Of course, in Islam, that's the first thing that Prophet ﷺ teaches, is character building, right? So our education system needs to really start adapting that basis of first few years of children that we have, 3 years or 4 years of schooling, should be on character building.
Yeah.
On ethics and morals and everything else, and then have them spend the next 5-10 years in terms of technology, utilization, and you're probably not going to need geniuses anymore. You're going to need people with good ethics and morals, kindness and softness, truthfulness. There'll be plenty of everything to go around if that happens.
Yep. You're talking about soft skills or human skills.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So yes, education-wise there. Now healthcare, you asked me about public and private partnerships. I always find them to be the best when and if possible. I think that governmental partnerships with private entities it's a great combination. And the reason I say that is because the government can actually make rules that allow fast decision makers who can pay well,
yes,
right, their people, to make good decisions but implement them pretty quickly. But if you have a government that doesn't see eye to eye with the private sector, you have this resistance and this friction that really kind of halts emerging anything,
yes,
let alone technology, right? So I think it's an essence of society that you have both that go hand in hand, and I think they have to. And I think in Pakistan, I don't know too much about it from that perspective because actually, I'm not from the fabric from here. I care about the fabric, but I'm not in the fabric. But I would highly encourage, and I am encouraging the government or the establishment to reach out to private sector, make their life easier, help them actually adapt emerging technologies. And the reason I'll tell you that is important is because I want our textile exporters to be the best in the world. I want our cotton exporters, I want our food exporters to be the best in the world. Because what does that do, right? End of the day, that we're talking about the foreign remittance and the exchange, sure, and the import-export. So if we help our private sector do better, we help the country do better.
Absolutely.
Right? More jobs, more people, more, greater amount of happiness in society, right? And we are at this crossroads right now where we can do this.
So I'm going to ask you a difficult question.
Oh, you've been asking me all easy questions so far.
You have actually visited with the senior leadership, both in the establishment and in the government here.
Yeah, yes.
How confident are you that Pakistan is actually going to jump on this bandwagon?
I'm very confident. At least from my assessment, right? You never know beyond your meetings and your assessment. But I believe their mindset is now red carpet for those that can actually bring emergency. I keep saying emergency. It is an emergency. Like I said earlier, this is an emergency.
It is.
Adapting emerging technologies is an emergency. It's a fast-moving train. So the feedback that I've gotten so far has been, yes, we agree. Yes, we believe. We just don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, we'll help you do it, but you're going to want it.
Yes.
If you want it, then allow us, ask us. Otherwise, I actually don't need to be here.
Correct.
And I'm not saying that in a bad way.
Yeah, no, I understand. What do you think will be the most significant technological advancement in healthcare and education in the next 5 to 10 years?
Robotics. Yeah. And what I mean by that, actually, we're already doing robotic surgery.
Correct.
In terms of healthcare, right? Robotic surgery is happening already, as quantum computing kicks in, it's just extremely fast decision making, right? So we'll be able to actually provide surgery using robotics in anywhere in the world, actually, remote parts or not, without human intervention.
Sure.
So that's just one answer. But I will tell you the other one that I think is going to be massively significant, and that is mental health.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. I think that that computers, or AI, again, quantum computing, is going to give us answers to a lot of the mental health issues that we have. It could potentially create the mental health issues, and it has in terms of social media and whatnot in the past when we talk about, our phones and everything else. But if we use it properly, it can give us the solutions for the problems that a lot of people are facing. And also keep in mind, we are massively overworked. Human beings right now on this planet.
That's correct.
And if we can decrease that and provide mental health-based scenarios, nicer parks, right? Greater outlets.
Correct.
Time for families to spend time together. And I'm not joking here. You have sort of the multi-family system in Pakistan, right, where people are almost forced to live together.
Correct.
In-laws with outlaws and everybody else, right? What if we actually remove that issue, right? When you actually have your own 3D printed home for everybody, like a couple gets married, the government provides them with a home as a gift.
Yeah.
Right? And albeit close by to their parents or their relatives, whatever it might be. And maybe I'm going too personal in terms of these kind of things, but that's just one example of what causes mental health issues.
Yeah.
Right? Is when people are worried about stuff, they're too intertwined. You got 3 families living in a 3-bedroom home, and then sharing the same kitchen and having all this stuff. That's one of the reasons you actually have conflicts, which then leads to mental health issues, which leads to people getting sick. Right? So AI can look at these things, and robotics can solve just that problem in itself right then and there. So,
a few years ago, I was actually working in a health system, a pretty large health system. And they started actually an experimentation, a research, where there was a camera which was trained on the face of an elderly patient who had a very high probability of a fall. And this camera would actually record changes in the facial expression even before the patient actually made an attempt to get off the bed, and alert the nurse that this particular patient actually has a very high probability if this patient actually gets off the bed without any support of actually sustaining a fall.
Yeah.
Just by change in the facial expression.
Yeah.
And obviously it had a lot of data from other patients and from hundreds and thousands of patients that was able to compute that outcome.
And it's got the data from that patient,
from that patient.
right?
Absolutely.
So it can, once it realizes it and sees it multiple times, now it knows exactly when that patient has this kind of expression getting up from the bed, that patient is ready for a fall.
Yeah.
So we're going to utilize this in so many different ways. And inshallah, for the benefit of mankind. Again, I get these questions all the time because I've just been involved with AI for so long. All kinds of questions come up. People are like, well, gosh, is AI going to, take over the world? And is it going to be Terminator? Is it going to be Matrix?
Yes.
And should we be afraid? Should we be scared? And, my response to those kind of questions is, I don't know the answer. But there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says that even if the day of judgment is starting, you see the day of judgment is starting and you're planting a tree, finish planting the tree.
That's right.
So anything good that you can do, even if it's the end of times,
do it.
As long as you have the time to do it, right? So for us, we're in the same boat. I don't know if AI is going to make the world into Matrix. But as long as I can use it for doing good, I'm hoping and I'm praying that I'm able to do so. And that's my goal.
Well, thank you for your time. And thank you for your optimism. It is really refreshing to know that somebody truly believes that Pakistan can actually get onto this bandwagon and create a brighter future for its citizens. Thank you, Dr. Sanat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My pleasure. And I 100% believe it's possible.
Thank you. Thank you.